Uh, Good morning, all. Today we have Dr. Anthony Leoasser with us. He is doctorate in physiotherapy and presently working as vice principal in Faculty of Physiotherapy at Ramchandra Institute of Higher Education. He has received Scroll of Honor Award in 2012, Significant Contribution Award in 2012 from IAP, Best Physiotherapy Award in 2013, and Significant Achievement Award by IAP in 2018. He has also awarded for Professional Excellence in 2019 and Icon of Physiotherapy Award in 2022. He also got award for the best scientific presentation in 2022. He has total 22 publications in Index Journal by PubMed, Scopus, and Web of Science with 120 citations. He has also translated the various skills used by the physiotherapist in Tamil language like SPARDI, start back screening tool and FMEQ. He has served as chairperson in ethical committee, doctoral committee member for PhD program in various universities. He is external expert of IQSC, member of academic council and member of various board of studies. He has served as core member in the physiotherapy during Joint Commission International USA and NABH and NEC accreditation. So we have a very eminent personality with us to focus on the research webinar, which will be organized by Parul Institute of Physiotherapy and Doctoral Studies, Parul University. So, on behalf of Parul University, I welcome you, sir, and I request you to enlighten our PhD scholars and some of the PG students to enlighten on the topic.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Is the screen visible? Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can start.
Thanks to the Almighty for the wonderful blessing. A special mention of thanks to Dr. Bhavna ma'am, the Dean of Faculty of Physiotherapy of Parallel University, for providing me this wonderful opportunity. So today the topic of discussion is choosing the right journal for publication. There is always a phrase which speaks about publish or perish. It is going to be quite an alarming statement for all academicians. Until unless you publish, you will perish. So, of course, it is going to be an harsh reality too, but it has got a negative connotation speaking across the word perish. Rather, let us call it as publish and flourish. To start with this presentation, this speaks about or highlights the importance of publication in an academic career, and as a researcher or an academician, this is going to be a part and parcel of your life, which is going to be you're going to make out your publications and through which we are going to flourish in our academic career. And as always said, an academic success depends on one's own research inputs and how do you publish onto the right journal. So this is one such webinar where you will take some insights about how to choose a publication, what are all the metrics which is involved towards it. And you also need to know what you should not do. I always advocate that you have to know what you should not do first. Then you have to know what you need to do. Or ultimately you will know what you need to do becomes much more what so-called you will get familiar towards it when you know about what you are not supposed to do. In publication, that's a very important thing, is that ethics plays a very, very important role in a publication process. So even ethics, a part of the ethics would be covered onto this webinar. The learning objectives of today's session, at the completion of the webinar, every participant would be able to understand the steps to follow in the process of publication and the checklist which is required that you need to check across, that these are all the elements which need to be checked before I proceed or choose a correct journal for publication. And very importantly, explaining the need for ethics and its guidelines. So you do have book guidelines for ethical conduct, very specific for the publication process. And as the entire globe is towards open access journals and so on, we are going to further analyze the pros and cons of open access publishing. And finally, understanding about what is predatory journals or spurious journals and its ill impact. And finding across a predatory journal would be a task, and finding across the right journal would be the ultimate. To introduce to this concept of how to choose a journal, a right journal for publication, first and the foremost thing, you have to find a suitable journal. Finding a suitable journal, again, it's on practice. We will not get by this webinar, or we will not get by listening to various literatures until unless we put on to practice. So without a practice, we cannot make it out. Without the trials and attempts, we cannot find a suitable journal for our manuscript. So that's the reason why many of the manuscripts get just rejected, that without finding the aims and the scope we try to apply towards it. And there is a lot of new avenues for this publication process is through the open access publication. But there are positive aspects and the negative aspects too, that also we will try to unravel it during this 1 hour of webinar. And all these open access comes under the directory of Open Access Journals 2020 onto the website, where you can able to see across which are all the journals which are indexed under the open access component. And these are all the journals which use a funding model that does not charge the readers or the institute for the access. Whereas the other journals which are not open access, where you need to have a login ID, sometimes there are few articles which need to be paid, and there are few articles which are free to download. But in open access, the name itself very clearly says you are allowed to access it freely. You can access all the articles across the globe, and you can able to get greater amount of knowledge in open access. So always, as it is open access, there are certain things, hidden agendas behind it, which we need to be very careful when we look across. We'll just move on to the core component of today's session is noting across the checklist to find an appropriate journal. The first and the foremost thing, we will be looking across the aim and the scope of the journal, whether it really matches. Being a physical therapist, I will always look across a physical therapy journal rather than a journal where rehabilitation is just a small component. So I ponder across or look across or go into the process of journals which really matches the aim and scope of the journal, whether it matches with my manuscript or not. As the journal publish articles similar type, by looking across that whether they have any similar articles related to it, for which you need to have certain keywords from your manuscript, and you have to enter onto the search engine of that website of the journal to find whether any similar articles have been published or not. Take an example of certain journals where they are multidisciplinary in nature. In that case, it is quite what's so called tricky to find across whether our manuscript will match over to it. And the peer reviewing process, the most intricate and the important process of what's so called the publication, where how the peer reviewing process is happening. I think most of you wouldn't have heard about this process. And this is one such process which is very important, that never believe a journal who just accepts manuscript within a time span. You have to know whether that journal has got a peer reviewing process. Without a peer review, a journal cannot be accepted at any cost. Does the journal reach the relevant audience? So this is what is the basic checklist which we'll be discussing further. The first and the foremost thing which we are happen to see here is, does the aim and the scope of this journal really matches my research work? So that is the first and the foremost thing which we always look across. So all throughout this presentation, I would have given an example of physical therapy reviews. So physical therapy reviews is a physical therapy journal where I have my latest publication towards it. So that's the reason why I have chosen. And you can able to see the screenshots of this what so called journal for all the purpose for what we need to look across for a publication process. So this example of physical therapy reviews, when I open this website, I do have something called as a tab or the portfolio about this journal, under which it speaks across. You can able to see the journal metrics, aim, scope, journal information, and very specifically mentioned editorial. So the first and the foremost thing which you need to click or to know about is the aims and the scope of the journal. Does the aims and the scope of the journal matches to my need? So when I click onto the part, so this is what I will get across on towards it. On clicking the physical therapy reviews, aims, and the scope, it has been clearly defined, clearly explained that this is an international journal which publishes contemporary reviews, discussion papers, and all the editorials within physical therapy. So this is a discipline-specific journal, and this publishes articles only related to physical therapy. Say, for example, a nursing professional would have done something related to rehabilitation. So this is not a scope for that article to enter into it. So they are very specifically mentioned. So that's the reason why I've told you this is a first step which you need to do. And they have clearly said any form of research related to or a teaching practices or a clinical practice within the physical therapy are welcomeable. And it could be either descriptive or systematic or invited in the various specialities of physical therapy, as like neurorehabilitation, musculoskeletal rehabilitation, chest physical therapy, obstetrics and gynecology related to physical therapy, and contemporary therapies and professional issues. So they are very specific that this is what they require. So if you are thorough with this, whether your manuscript matches with the aims and scope, you can proceed further to the next step. As the journal published articles of a similar nature. So you have a search engine onto the top where I have a need and I have typed pain mechanism and osteoarthritis need. I want to know whether any similar articles have been published related to it. And I could able to see 25 results for which. So the very important thing is choosing of your keywords from your manuscript or from your abstract. That's why keywords plays a very, very important role when you go for your literature search or when you go for finding your appropriate journal. So on clicking on to it, I could able to find one article. So this was, I was telling you, this was the article with the recent publication of me with the influence of pain quality on physical performance in subject with osteoarthritis. I could able to see 25 articles related to it. And now I can correlate that, yes, there are similar articles which have been found in this journal with my article. So then the next step is also a positive step, which I will go further. And the other thing behind this, there are 25 search results which I've got. Whether I need to look across all the 25 or rather me further refining my search strategies. That is the keyword, refining the keywords. So what I did next is I refined it using appropriate keywords. I just wanted very specifically neuropathic pain and osteoarthritis because neuropathic pain is a part of pain mechanisms out of the three mechanisms. So I want a specific answer whether this journal has published specific to it. So my keyword search has got filtered, and you can able to see over here neuropathic pain and osteoarthritis knee onto the top. And from the 25, I have received only 3 articles. So this makes my search further precise, and this makes my search more significant that the second step is also positive for me to choose this journal for my publication because there were relevant articles which this journal has published. What are all the journals very important because you have a huge list. I can very well say this is also a tricky method or a tricky procedure, or you can say it is an Himalayan task because every journal has got a separate requirement. So when you would have been prepared a manuscript in a general format, and now you have chosen this physical therapy review journal for your what so called for your publication process, and you need to get or click the instruction for the authors. The list is huge, starting from the title page till the referencing styles they would have given you in one manner. Whereas if you open an other journal, the instruction to the authors more or less might be similar, but 30% would be different. Why I am stating it? If this journal rejects, we need to go on to another journal. And for that other journal, we need to manipulate our manuscript according to the needs. That's why I said it is going to be really an important, significant task for us. Because most of these rejections happens when the submissions outside the journal scope are often. Without a review, they just reject. So out of experience, I am telling you that there are even journals which have rejected within half an hour of time after submission. Why? Because doesn't come under the purview of them. It doesn't come under the scope. So that's the reason why you need to look across the aims, scope, and very importantly, your manuscript has to be recrafted or redesigned according to the instructions of the authors. To further explain, see across here the structure, instructions to the author. So starting from the title page, still the references and the indexes, you will have lot much of instructions. Even writing a cover letter to the editor is a biggest craft, which you mean to say there is a lot amount of skill which is involved. And always use your institutional official IDs for the publication process rather than your personal IDs. Writing a cover letter, making your title page, some journal will ask for a title page speaking about the running title, the number of words, how the abstract has got, the number of words your methodology has got, every single detail, and all the details of the author need to be in the title page in different format according to different journals. So starting from title page or abstract keywords, every journal has got its own format of asking you the details for it. And most of these, what so called the prepared contents would be uploaded in a software. Very specifically, we call it as an editorial manager. So different publishing services has got different forms of editorial. Certain things are very direct and easy for a novice researcher to do, but certain things where certain technical aspects need to be understood before you go on to the process. So once you start uploading each and every page towards it, even if there is a mismatch, most of these journals will ask for an abstract to be worded for 250. If your abstract has been worded for 255, it may not accept it. Then you have to re-edit it and have to upload it. On re-editing, we have to be very careful that we may miss out certain significant keywords from the abstract. So that's the reason why I've told you that it is really a meticulous process of understanding what are all the guidelines, what are all the guidelines or the instructions for the author, which need to be clearly understood for the process of publication. And word limits, yes, of course, play a role. and each and everything got its own limit, and exceedingly you cannot do. And once the editor finds you haven't followed the instructions of the journal without a peer reviewing process, there are chances of rejection because you haven't followed. Say, for example, if it is a table which has to be put where Excel format is an approved method through Excel because your table becomes very, very what prominent when you do it in an Excel and when you extract it from an Excel. Rather, you make a table in a Word document, it is bound to go for all changes. I think everybody would have got an experience on making out your tables. If you are going to represent a pictures, this much JPEG, this much pixel, it should be in JPEG format, and this much amount of pixels, which are the requirements. So all those specifications which you need to really ponder before you take into consideration for the publication process. The journal metrics. So this is again a very important thing that look into the site for the journal metrics. How many people have used on an annual method? How many have downloaded is what speaks about the usage. As of this physical therapy reviews is concerned, you can able to see even the citation metrics. So this I'll be discussing further what are these values are all about. And these are all the very important values which you need to look to make a differentiation between a predatory journal and a good journal. And even the speed and the acceptance rate. So 31% is acceptance rate for this. So remaining would not be accepted. So it's a fair point that we have seen that just only 31% they have accepted with their previous data. And they have also mentioned about how many days it would take 44 days and 96 days and 20 days once accepted when it comes for an online publication. So this journal metrics is very important, and the center one, the citation metrics, is the most significant one which you need to look into every journal before you proceed into publication, because that speaks about the site score, how many apps cited it. And this also speaks about the impact ranking too. So these citation metrics are very, very important. And if a journal's website doesn't speak about the citation metrics, then there is no meaning of choosing the journal. What is a journal's audience? So the international peer-reviewed journals typically tend to have a broader readership than the regional ones, but they are called as international. And one more thing which you need to know, any journal which is international will not have a tag of international. Rather, the local journals, spurious journals, or predatory journals with no double thinking, they will have a tag of the name international. So that is again an hidden fact of which you need to know across. No international peer-reviewed journal will call them as international, and they have a broad readership and than the regional ones, whereas the regional ones are the one which tends to publish within the geographical limit. So if your study is very specific to Indian population, so which you have highlighted in your study title, very specific to a specific region or a geographical nature, then it is better to prefer to go for a regional type of languages because the applicability applies. So you have done for specifically for an Indian population, and the applicability we need to be known at the regional level. It is not a rule of nine, but it's just a suggestion on it. Whereas a niche research topic, a topic of big interest. So during this pandemic, I think every journal has given a portfolio for COVID related, even though they haven't served previously with COVID related, I mean, previously with the regards of it, they have provided a space for it. So again, many of the physical therapists have used this opportunity to publish journals related to physical therapy and COVID rehabilitation. So such journals are most likely to get accepted for publication in specialized journals. So specifically, you want to address certain things, and those specific journals, specifically if you have done on a low back rehabilitation. So you can look across a journal which is specific for low back. You have a journal of low back and musculoskeletal pathologies, and you have a journal called as spine. So as like which, so if your work is specific, you can go for those specific journals. And as I've told you, open access journals are accessed by wider audience all across the globe. But there is an increasing criticism. Always there is a red alert which you need to look across in open access journals, because most of these open access journals are lacking proper peer reviewing process, and they are not available in the indexing databases as like Scopus, PubMed, and Web of Science. If they are not available in these indexing databases, better to avoid those open access journals. And when they don't have a peer review and they have a very poor quality control. The next component which you need to look before choosing the journal, whether the journal has got an impact factor. So this impact factor is a score, more the number, more the impact. The name itself clearly says whether any impact which has created. So how much is the impact which has created? I happened to read a document yesterday of the recent impact factor, list of impact factor of 2022. Astonished to see a journal of cancer biology, or I think cancer related to a journal related to cancer, which has got an impact factor of 200 and odd, which means it's a huge number. So such much amount of impact factor journal which we do have. And this impact factor was invented by Clarivate Analytics in the year 1960s. And how do we calculate? Let us make the calculation as simple as possible. It is a ratio of the number of citations. So how many of the persons have cited? Say, for example, I have published an article. This is just an example, 2 years before. And I think 10 of the fellow researchers have used my articles as references. That is what is called as citations. So 10 of them have used my article and they have listed in the references. So I get the credit of 10 citations. So based on the citations, the impact factor would be calculated. So the ratio of the number of citations to the journal's articles to the number of total citable articles published in that journal over a fixed period of time. So this is the definition. But you can look on to this column where you can able to see A, B, and C. C stands for the number of citations in 2018 for these two publications. Say 100 articles are published in 16 and 1700 articles are published, and you have a value year 200. So year 200 divided by 200. So you get a value of 1. So the impact factor, or I'm sorry, if it is going to be, you will get a value of 0. So which you mean to say that is there is not an impact factor at all for this journal. So your citations has to be more than your items which got published over to the part. So I will show you further examples to further understand how to calculate the impact factor. So directly you can jump into the last component, the example, the Nature, which is the most significant journal, which in 2017 has got an impact factor of 41.57. That's a good number. So how they have calculated is the citations which they have received in 2017 for the articles which got published in 16 and 15. So the citations which they have received for these two number of publications is 74,090. And whereas the number of publication is 880 plus 902. So thereby you get a number. That is what is the way by which the impact factor is calculated. And what does it mean is the impact factor, if say, for example, if a journal has got an impact factor of 1, on average, the article published 1 or 2 years have been at least cited 1 time by them. So that's an understanding which you get out of which. And this is a very important, significant factor which we need to know. So it varies across disciplines. There is not going to be any fixed number, but certain literature says impact factor of 10 is considered to be excellent. Impact factor of 3 is considered to be significant. Even between 1 to 3 is accepted rather than having no impact factor. This is what I was about to tell you, the points to know. So this impact factor should not be used to compare to. So this is not for a comparison sake because citation practice vary with disciplines. So it varied with physiotherapy, it varies with pharmaceutical sciences, nursing, and other healthcare. It is going to vary, and you cannot assess the quality of individual articles. Impact factor will not assess the quality. If you have produced a good quality manuscript and a good quality publication, many people will cite. That is what is called as citations. So citations is directly proportional to the impact factor. So in that way, it is related, whereas it is not directly related to a quality. So you would have published a quality article on COVID rehabilitation. Over a period of time, after 10 years or 15 years, there is nothing called as COVID by then. People will not cite your articles. In that case, even though you have produced a quality article, it may not be cited even at the later aspects. So we cannot assess the quality of an individual article by an impact factor. Impact factor is for that journal. It is not for a specific said article. And not all journals have impact factor. So this is one alarming statement which you need to look across, that they just they must be in indexing databases. Until unless a journal is in the indexing database, as I've told you, Scopus, PubMed, or Web of Science, the three commonest thing which we always look across, and when they are not available in that, they will not have an impact factor. So better being a novice researcher, you can always have, even if it is 0.10, even it is 0.5, even it is 1 or 1.5, that is a good number. So means to say, rather than 0, any form of number, being a novice practitioner or a novice researcher, you can always look across journals with minimal impact factors. What is the journal's peer reviewing process? So this is again a meticulous process, which I was telling you that this is a process which would be done by a double-blinded one. So it would be sent for 2 reviewers, and they will critically acclaim or critically acknowledge your articles in all specific manner. There are a lot of parameters each and every journal has got, and apart from those parameters, you can specifically write, this is a statement in introduction which is ambiguous. So this is a statement which is getting repeated in your discussion session. And this is not an apt statement in discussion. And this is a statement which is older in reference. You try to quote the recent references. All these things are the one or the comments which you receive from the peer reviewing process. And according to me, with this experience, I can very well tell you, peer reviewing process helps you to grow in the process of publication. In spite if your article gets rejected, but you get a report, you get a report from them. What are the ways by which you can improve? So that's the reason why this will further improvise, and you may get a better journal months next, by which you can make your publication. So always take the peer reviewing process as a constructive criticism. So the process is solely independent, and it is very rigorous, and it should be unbiased. And it is time bound, that you will get the peer reviewing report and a comprehensive review, and information on the number of reviewers also you would be getting once the review process is finished. Few journals will have 2, and some may have 3 reviewers, and they are totally blinded, and even from which institution you belong to, or even where the study has happened, all those details would be blinded, and you will get just the content, crisp content of the manuscript to the reviewers. And as I've told you, constructive method and valuable comments will enhance quality. So this is going to be an ultimate point. You have to take into consideration that even the article gets rejected, there is a big scope that your article gets further molded so that you can try a better article. So that's why we call it as every journal, every discipline, we call it as Q1 journal, Q2, Q3, and Q4, which means Q1 is top 1 to 25%, Q2 is 25 to 50, then 50 to 75, and 75 to 100. So this speaks about the quality quartiles of the journals. So you would have applied for a Q3 and it would have got rejected, but a proper peer reviewing process provided you a constructive and a valuable comments that would have made you to construct further. And no doubt your journal may get accepted in a Q2. So that speaks across, it helps in the process of moving from quartile to quartiles. So always consider peer reviewing process as a constructive method. What are all the red flags in journal issues? Yes, as I have told you, there are a lot of predatory journals. You get a lot of spam emails once you start publishing. They will email you. I have read your article. It was fantastic. It meets our standards. Could you just provide an article which would get published within a month? All these fascinating emails you will get once you start publishing. But always beware that you are not supposed to look into those journals at all. Always, you need to reach a journal. The journal should not reach you. That's a point which you need to take across because that's the biggest red flag which you commonly encounter. Surely you will get across with lot of fascinating emails with all flavory words you will get across. Don't get overwhelmed that your article has reached the global domain. Not so. They are all predatory journals. They have all hidden agendas. Please be very careful. As like implied promise of publication before submission. That's one of the biggest red flags. They will promise you that they will publish without a peer reviewing process. Immediate acceptance. Once you submit, they will accept it within a day or two. Yes, you do have a lot of journals to do about it. So do not fall prey to them. Lack of proper peer reviewing and vigilance. Nothing will happen in those. It will just get accepted. So if any of these journals have got these signs, you consider it to be a red flag, and it is high time that you need to avoid it. So that's the reason why we need to follow the guidelines for a good publication practices, that is COPE, that is Committee on Publication Ethics. There are around 8 to 9 elements, of which I thought that these 6 elements have to be discussed in detail for a proper publication process. So ethics, as I have told you, ethics doesn't mean that when you do a study, ethics plays an important role. Even when you publish also, ethics stand by. So very importantly, what this committee looks across is the study design and the ethical approval. So every institution will have a meticulous ethical review board, IRB, you will be having it and you need to present onto it and you will be receiving a letter with a reference number, and that is a number which you need to quote, and you have to even comment about the ethical committee also. And the study design, very importantly, they will look across for the methodology. If it is a randomized control trial, they will look across for how you have randomized it. Have you blinded it or have you had follow-up? What are all the objective outcome measures have you made across? Very important is the protocol, whether it is a superficial protocol which you have applied or it is what's so called a validated protocol which you have applied, all those things which would be looked across, and the ethical approval even till at the level of informed consent. So there are even few journals who ask for, can you just send us your informed consent which you have provided, even the certain things without identity of the name, you just send across. Even there are even situations we have faced it. So informed consent, again, patient information sheet, all have to be, at least should be in the regional language and in the language of English, which need to be there. And all those things would be considered for a good publication practice. That is, these are all the ones which need to be checked by the ethical committee, and the COPE guidelines also says about it. The next important thing is the data analysis. So the data analysis speaks across what is a statistical test, which we have really employed over to it. Whether have you done across a parametric test or a non-parametric test, and even importantly, whether your what's so called the normality of the data has been checked, then you have proceeded with choosing parametric and non-parametric, and how do you represent your results using p-value or confidence intervals, or it is your HOC analysis which has been done. All these are the ones which could be checked under the category of data analysis. As of authorship is concerned, there is no specific definition for authorship. But very importantly, in all these research publications, the first author or the corresponding author have been given weightage. Either it might be an academic performance or whatever it might be. The first author has been given a greater weightage, and the corresponding author has been given a weightage apart from the remaining authors. So most of these journals will ask what the first author has done, what the second author has done, the contribution towards the publication. So this is very important that you need to highlight whether your journal is asking for it. So that is also the parallelly you need to think whether they are asking what each and every author has contributed. An equal contribution is expected from the journal point of view, that the author should have contributed essentially for this, or it is just for the namesake. If you add, then again, it is an unethical practice. Reductant publication is nothing but publishing that is without a cross reference. You have already published and you are parallelly and you are submitting the same published version onto a different journal with very minimal changes, without the change in the data, without the change in most of the content. So that's what is reductant publication, which is again an unethical practice which need to be looked across. And as we have already discussed about peer review, I may not touch more onto it. So peer reviewing process, whether they have underwent it, at least minimum of 2 double-blinded peer review, whether it has been conducted and whether the author has received those reports. So the reports of the peer review, which is of most important, and whether what the author has applied those comments. So you would be checking it across whether you have improvised it and you have resubmitted it, and further it will further undergo a process of revision. So it may start from a major revision, go on to a minor revision till it goes for acceptance. And finally, the most important thing is the plagiarism, which is nothing but to simply colloquially call it as cut and paste model. So we call it as verbatim plagiarism. So somebody's work, somebody's writing, you cut and paste. And even if you change 1 or 2 synonyms onto it, it is also considered to be your verbatim plagiarism. So which is no way accepted in research. And that's a major reason most of the articles get rejected. So we do have a good practice in our institute where we have a publication oversight committee under which we undergo any manuscript will go for a plagiarism check. And we have a cutoff score of less than 10%. If it is more than 10% of plagiarized content where we need to re-edit it and have to send for it, and even you will get the highlights, which is a statement which is 68% plagiarized, which is 100% plagiarized, because there are certain definitions where you cannot change. Definitions from the World Health Organization and all those things. So those also would be considered as a plagiarized statement. Rather than correcting it, you can edit it further so that your cutoff score is less than 10%. So 10% is a cutoff score, which, and it differs with institutions to institutions. But one important say or a take home is you need to do it before the journal does it, or before you submit it to the journal, that you need to check the plagiarism and have a software, which is again over there also you have a lot of free softwares which may not do a good job. So better find a appropriate plagiarism software, even if it is a paid software. So that plagiarized software will provide you how much percentage of content it is a more what's so called, it's as like which is found in other literature. So cut copy paste model is one model which you have to think that has to be avoided at any cost. It should be your own words. So I always advocate that you write keywords, what you need to write. You put it in keywords, then you elaborate it. So that's the way it is an art of writing. So rather than cut, copy, pasting it, which could be found, and most all the postgraduates dissertation also have to undergo this process. So because postgraduate dissertations are the very important one which can be published, because and all these things have to undergo this process of plagiarism checking, and that have to be done at your level. Then of course journal persons would be doing from their end too. And more the percentage of plagiarism, there's a great chances that your article may not be accepted. And these are all just the common general factors which for the rejection of the manuscript. is taken into consideration, the manuscript content does not conform to the scope. I think this we have discussed. You are not followed that journal style, format, and the guidelines. And duplication, plagiarized content, insignificant results, and inappropriate rationale of the study, and very superficial treatment of the subject. Very superfluous, very simple, very direct, and poorly designed study in the terms of statistical tests and controls. So the way you represent your data is again a skill. How do you use symbol for a mean and stand between the mean and the standard deviation? So all those things matters a lot when it comes for a publication in a top journal. So poorly designed study, preliminary results, all those things, and very importantly, lack of clarity in writing. As I have told you, writing is an art where we need to inculcate and imbibe certain principles towards it. Moving on to the open access publishing, I think some introduction has already been given, and this is a definition where there are no financial, legal, technical barriers to access an open access. This is to say that everyone can read, everyone can download, copy, distribute, print, search for, and search within the information or use it in education in any other way within the legal agreement. So this is quite a what you call a wordy definition which you see for an open access. And this is what is a finite definition which I found in the literature too. It is the name itself says it is open access, it's free to use. And as I've told you, there are a lot of pros and cons over it. Coming back to our own example of the physical therapy reviews journal. So you can able to see this is for the peer review, the overall process. You have an option you see onto the top, choose open, which means it is for the open access. You need to have a specific what you call a portfolio for it, and you have a lot of agreements towards it. All those things which you need to read. So publishing open access means that your article would be free to access online by anybody immediately once it gets published. Greater amount of visibility you will get, readership, and the impact of it. And Taylor and Francis, that is a publishing services of the physical therapy reviews, have stated that they receive 95% more citations in open access and over 7 times many downloads in open access rather than the other one, non-open access. And you have two types of open access. One is a gold open access, the other is a green open access. Gold is the one which is a paid one where you have an article processing charges for it, where in a gold open access, the final version of the article would be published on an online platform immediately after the process of acceptance, and anyone can read and reuse it. Whereas a green one is a self-archiving one where it is just in the repositories, it would be available and share articles without, that is, it doesn't attract any article processing charges, whereas a gold attracts charges. Yes, moving on to the advantages and the disadvantages of the open access. There are no charges to access and read. That's the biggest advantage. And it's an open educational resource where anybody can look into it. They can get it very easily and no barriers to acquire and all. Let's say if you have a concept to learn, look across an open access journal, you get 5 to 10 relevant articles and you read and you gain knowledge immediately. The biggest disadvantage is that most of them do not have an impact factor. Those journals will not, already I told you, DOAJ, that is a directory of open access journal website, will give you the list of good open access journals where you need to look, and not available evenly in all disciplines do not have it. And many of them fall a prey to the predatory journals. Most of the open access, so-called predatory journals falls under the open access category. And what it really offers, there is a pros and the cons which you have seen, and the major advantages with various disciplines. For a researcher, it gives a greater visibility, global visibility across the globe, and it widens the network for collaborating researchers with other fellow people. And for a teacher, yes, if you want to take a class, you get access to the open access and you can prepare the recent updated content and unlimited resources, you will get it. Or from a student point of view or a novice researcher, it's a free to access of the recent research. You can prepare your review of literature very easily and you have got a good collection of research materials. And for institution, it is it is acting as a research repository. And what are the steps or the checklist which we need to follow in an open access is all through open access. That is, you have to first and the foremost thing, you have to find whether they are the member of this DOAJ, as I've told you, and verify the journal website and who are their sponsors are all about. Check the editorial board, which comprises the multidisciplinary in nature, and statement about their publication fee, that is a APC, and whether the articles which got published has got a DOI number. So this DOI, I've given you an example. This is how a DOI looks. If you click it, it will go on to the article. So every article should have a digital object identifier. So if that open access journal has got articles with the DOI, so that has to be checked. Then you need to further check their license agreement terms and verifying the ISSN number. What is the ISSN number of that? That is the International Standard Serial number for that journal. Finally, the predatory journal. So what we have discussed about what is required for the journal to get published and what are all the things which are happening across around us. We may fall prey to these predatory journals. So always think twice, check it, submit. Now you do have the checklist in your hand. You need to check and have to make a note of it. And this is again, it's a consensus statement where from 10 countries, they have come on together to define the statement of predatory journals. So this is a definition, and this got published in the journal Nature in the year 2019. What do they entice? So the other name for predatory journal is spurious journals. So they act as if they have a peer reviewing process. They act as if they have a meticulous process of doing the peer reviewing and publishing, but actually they are not. They always provide confusing facts about the impact factor. You can see down the two examples. Rather than the impact factor, what Clarivate Analytics have said, they have something called as Google-based impact factor, which is not at all. So means to say that's a falsification, or that is not going to be a impact factor which is accepted. So they will try to use the word impact factor. They will add something extra to it. So don't get what's so called falling prey towards it. So Google-based impact factor and international scientific indexing impact factor are all the odd terms. So those are all the confusing parameters. Do not, if they say across, reject it immediately. And speed of the peer reviewing. So again, which you mean to say very quickly they try to do the peer reviewing, or they may not, considering the process of peer reviewing and using the word open access model of publishing. And how to identify the predatory journals is always looking for the journal metrics. So the very important thing is that this journal metrics, journals of repute will have a well-defined editorial board and a publishing policy. So look for only the impact factor of it and the speed of processing the manuscript, the time taken, and all those things, whether they are in the indexing databases. And these are all the scores which I'll be telling you. How do they calculate the agent factor, the site score, the Schemago journal ranking? This is what you are supposed to look into for a dignified journal. And the SNP, that is a source normalized impact per factor. So these are all the journal metrics which I've already shown you in an example of physical therapy reviews, which you need to look, so that if you look for this, predatory journal will automatically go off. So let us look into those definitions. What is site score? This is being powered by Scopus. The average number of citations received by articles in a journal over a 4-year period. So that's what is a site score. And the agent factor score is the measures the number of times articles from the journal published in the past 5 years that has been cited in the journal citation reports. So the journal citation reports is an ultimate one where you need to look across as of the impact factor is concerned. What is the SNP is nothing but the number of citations per year in the journal divided by the citation potential in that field. So it varies with discipline. So SNP is one such thing where with discipline specific, it is going to vary. And SCImago journal ranking is the average number of weight citations in 1 year divided by the number of articles published in the journal in the previous 3 years. So you have a 4-year period, 5-year period, and a 3-year period by which all these scorings have to be done. So here is an example where you see for the physical therapy reviews, it falls under the Q3, which means quartile 3. It is not Q4. So you can, to some extent, for a beginner, or even for a researcher with experience, can go ahead with a Q3 type of journal. So these informations would would be seen onto those journal websites. So if you type the journal name and if you write Scopus or SCImago, you will get these details very specifically, including the H index and so on. So here you see the SJR value is 0.25 for this journal. So which means that in 1 year divided by the number of articles in the past 3 years, and you see this is the SJR graphical representation for the physical therapy reviews. From 1999, the journal is in existence, and you see a peak value of SJR has improved in the year between 17 to 20, and you see a drop also. So by which all these things should be available in a good journal. So which means which has got a good impact factor, which has got a good indexing database and a proper pre-reviewing process. And even you can even see the graphical representations of the citations, the total, what do you mean by total citations, how it has received. And you see a plot increasing between 11 to 14 within this 3-year period. The increased number of citations are seen there. Again, there is a drop, again, there is an increase. And this one is for the self-citation. So if I cite my own article, then the weightage is less. So that is what a self-citation, even that plotting is also being noted. So it has been expected for any efficient journal that as a researcher, you need to look into those process of various, this is what is called as journal metrics, knowing across the site score, SNP score, and SJR score. Metrics to identify a reputed journal. So thus in a nutshell, you have to see whether they have been indexed in Scopus, Web of Science, or in PubMed, and their impact factor, how their peer reviewing processes, and their composition of the editorial board. And these are all the various indexing databases for your references, which I have given you. These are all the portals: Science Direct, EBSCO, Medliner, Embase powered by Elsevier. They are the publishing for the Embase, and all these portals or the validated one or the indexing databases, which has got articles related in getting indexed in those. So look for the indexing databases before you start your publication process. And further continue, look for the double peer blinding of the peer review process, at least with 2 peer reviewers, and look for the journal ranking in the journal citation report from powered by Thomson Reuters, and look for the composition of the editorial board, what are their qualification, experience, and scope and policies further. And about the predatory journals, so Jeffrey Bell was the first one to coin the word. You do have a website of Beall's list, so under which you can type it and find whether the journal is predatory or not. And according to Cabell's blacklist, they have found around 4,000 predatory journals across the globe, which are still surviving. And this is what is the definition which I've told you for the predatory journal, which got published in Nature in 2019. So 10 countries have come across. They took across 12 hours of discussion, 18 questions are put forth, and 3 rounds of survey were conducted just to make one definition for predatory, what is predatory journalist all about. So this is what is the meticulous work which people really look across, or it is expected of you to go about with it. And in a physical therapy practice, even there are a lot of publications coming across about the predatory journals. So there is one article in 2020 which has been published in Archives of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. That's a journal which has got a good amount of impact factor, and it is in all the indexing databases powered by Elsevier. And what the article speaks about, the open access physical therapy journals do predatory journals publish low quality randomized controlled trials. So that is what the article is about. And they have highlighted that greater number of papers published by the predatory physical therapy journals, there is a clear risk that predatory publishers contribute to the dissemination of unsound research findings. And the published randomized controlled trial are found to be low quality as of the predatory journal publications are concerned. So this is a concluding note which you can take from a given example from a physical therapy journal. Thus, in bottom line, always be metric wise. So you have to be very wise as of the journal metric is concerned. So that's why I call it as metric wise. Focus on the journal with good metrics. By then we can avoid all the predatory journals. And ultimately, ethical standards stand on to the top to ensure the high quality scientific publications. Yes, on a lighter vein, so you also have to be very patient when you do the process of manuscript submission, and it takes time. So never ever try to give your article to another journal, which is considered to be unethical. At a given point of time, one article has to be submitted to one journal. You may think if he rejects, I may go for parallelly, the process can go. No, that's an unethical practice. At one point of time, you have to be giving one article to a journal and you have to wait. Parallelly do a work for the other articles which you do have in pipeline. So that is the message which I'd like to deliver. You have to be patient when your manuscript is submitted. Some may take few days, some may take few months too, or years too. But a quality journal will take time for it to get published. And very importantly, the impact factor stands on to the top. So whoever it might be, either an author, publisher, editor, or reviewer, this ethical practice is one such thing which has to be followed at any point, any cost. And this was an information source for further reading. You can look into the UGC website on good academic research practices which got published in 2020. Thank you all for the patient listen.
Thank you very much, sir. Like publication is a big process and it's a big headache for all the research scholars. But you have given very good knowledge or even minute detail which you have shared with all the scholars, and this will be definitely beneficial for all the research scholar as well as for the master student for their future publication. And definitely with help of this webinar they can publish their research work in very good journal. So thank you very much on behalf of Dr. Bhavna Gadvi, as she is missing some of the exam. She has not attended. She could not join with us to give you vote of thanks. But on behalf of Bhavna Madam and Parul Institute of Physiotherapy and Doctoral Studies, Parul University, I would like to thank you very much for providing such insight to all the research scholars related to their publication, and they will definitely use these guidelines for their future publication, which will be helpful for them. So thank you very much, sir.
It's my pleasure, or if there's any questions I could answer, I could answer. Is there a time for that?
Thank you, sir.